Hi, my name is Carlos, and today we're going to be talking about this Hamilton Khaki Aviation Pilot in a 36mm case. Could this watch be the closest thing to affordable, quiet luxury? Let's find out. So this is Hamilton's Khaki Aviation Pilot in 36mm. This is actually a watch that, in my opinion, is a unisex watch, but Hamilton seems to be kind of pushing it a little bit more on the ladies' watches side of things. But I actually think that this could make a great men's watch if you are the type of person that leans towards those smaller watch cases. All right, so right before we get started, I do want to thank the good folks over at Hamilton that let me borrow this review unit for this review. One thing to keep in mind is I do not get to keep this watch. This watch is simply on loan, and that means that Hamilton has absolutely no say in the making of the review, and everything that you will be hearing and seeing in this review is basically my unfiltered opinions about this particular watch. So for those of you that may not know, Hamilton used to be an American watch company that's been around for over 100 years, and they were mostly known for creating amazing railroad grade pocket watches back in the day, and also for supplying American military with some of the first wristwatches that were used on the field. However, in the last half century, these watches have moved completely to Switzerland, and the brand has now been bought by Swatch Group. They've been basically operating as a Swiss watchmaking brand that still introduces and brings a lot of that American military flavor to their watches. Another thing that's really interesting about Hamilton is that they also do a lot of really cool movie collaborations. So they have a big presence in Hollywood, and as well as having created some really interesting watches back in the 50s and 60s that were used by celebrities such as Elvis Presley. So that's enough about Hamilton as a company. Let's go ahead and get started with the watch review. If you watch my reviews before, you probably know that I like to start with fit and finish. So as we start looking at the fit and finish of this watch, I think the first thing that we will immediately gravitate to is the case. And the case is kind of an enigma to me because due to the size and color and overall feel of this watch, I find this to be a very elegant, very classy, very sort of fashion forward watch, which is something that I really like about it. But when we look closely, we realize that Hamilton has still stuck to a tool watch inspired theme with this watch by basically keeping all of the surfaces brushed. You'll notice that the case has absolutely no bevels, and everything has been pretty much just softened to remove all edges and just keep the overall case pretty soft and tool inspired. There is one part of the case where you will find a small amount of polishing, and that's going to be on the outer side of the bezel, where you can see that there's been a little bit of polishing that's happened there just to get the watch to maybe have like a little bit more pop on the wrist. But for the most part, this is pretty much finished as a tool watch. So another part that's very interesting about this watch is the dial, where this idea of tool watchness continues by basically having what I would describe as a very industrial finished dial. In the dial, we can see that some of the numbers have actually been painted on, and we can also see that the etching and triangle at the 12 o'clock of the Pilot watch have kind of been etched into place, which is very interesting. The dial, even though it's white, is an actual metallic dial with a very nice sun ray effect etched into it that just makes it play very nicely. You will see a very nice, also metal looking chapter ring that also has some brushing on it that adds extra track for more detailed reading of minutes and seconds. The other part of the dial that I think is very interesting is the hands, which are very sort of classic, large, bold pilot hands that are actually finished in kind of like a rose gold color, maybe copper, and have been linearly brushed really nicely to give a lot of texture to these hands. In the hands, you will find a large amount of lume, which makes these hands actually stand out pretty nicely in the dark. And you will also find that the second hand has a little sort of triangle trident at the very tip that is also covered in lume and also glows in the dark. I find these hands to be very nice, not just in the brush finishing, but also because they have a little bit of curvature to them that in my mind sort of gives the hands and the dial just a little bit more dimension whenever you look at it. One of the hands that's very interesting to me is the hour hand, which has kind of a gap in the triangular tip of the hand so that you can actually see the hour markers through it. The particular sapphire crystal on this watch is also very nice. It's pretty much a flat sapphire crystal that has reflective coating in what seems to me both sides, because there is basically no reflections of this crystal. You always have a pretty clean and unimpeded look at this beautiful multi-textured, yet very simple kind of metallic / pearly dial and hands. As we turn the watch around, we will see that this watch features a display case back, which means that we get to take a look at the very nice Powermatic movement that Hamilton puts in their watches. One of the things that I like about Powermatics in Hamilton is that there's multiple grades of Powermatics, and they do not use the lowest grade with a plastic escapement. They use basically the second grade, which has a full metal escapement, which I think makes it a better movement than what you will find in other Swatch brands that also use Powermatics. And I like that there's a little bit of extra decoration that Hamilton does by stamping the movement with their own H for Hamilton, as well as adding this custom rotor that has all of the Hamilton branding and just adds a little bit of extra flair to the movement. So this particular version of the watch comes in this beautiful white leather strap. I am very surprised by the quality of this leather strap, to be honest, compared to other factory straps that I dealt with from Swatch Group as well as other micro brands. This thing basically feels like tumbled leather. So if you're a sneaker collector and you know how cool it is to get that tumbled leather on a good pair of Jordan 1 sneakers, that's kind of how this band feels. It is just buttery and it is really soft, and it is just an insane pleasure to wear. It's a little bit thinner and smaller to accommodate that 36mm case. Just very impressed with the overall look and feel of the leather strap, and I think that leather straps is something that Hamilton is doing a lot better. I think last year and this year they've really just put a lot more effort into finding premium materials and really thinking about the best possible colors to match with their cases to really give these watches like a unique yet luxurious yet very classy look, and I think that this is something that they're doing really well. The leather strap itself comes with a very basic keeper that is fully brushed and has the Hamilton logo pretty much laser etched onto it, as well as 2 leather keepers to make sure that your straps are going to stay in place. All right, so now that we've kind of done the basic part of the review, let's get into the nerdy part, which is all the accuracy stuff. So all of the watches that I review, I put on the time grapher. I test them over 6 positions, and while the time grapher will not tell you everything that you need to know about the accuracy of your watch, the best thing is just to wear it and see what kind of timings you're gonna get throughout the day. I do think that testing these movements across several positions does give us a good idea of the health and quality of movements that you get in these watches. Now, one thing that I will throw out there, just to be fair to Hamilton, is that the particular watch that they sent me was a sample unit. It didn't even have a serial number, which means that these are not the final watches that went to people who purchased the watches or to ADs. With all of that said, this movement was okay, but it was not great. I think it does fall under the standard range of what you would expect for sort of basic Powermatics that have those metal escapements but are not Elabore or Silicium or are not cost grade. The overall gap of timing between the slowest position and the fastest position was close to 18 seconds, which is a lot for these Powermatic movements. I would like to definitely see those movements under 8, even closer to 6, which is what you're gonna get with the SW200s, which are the kind of more common replacements for the ETA 2824. With that said, the average timekeeping across all 6 positions was under 4 seconds for this watch, which I think it's pretty good. And as I said, I do think that the Powermatics that are used on the non-sample versions are probably gonna run a much tighter spec than this. So now that we've talked about accuracy, we're gonna get into the hard part of the review. The hard part of the review is always talking money. This particular watch retails just a little bit under $1,000 on the Hamilton website. You might be able to get some deals through your local AD. I think that this is an okay price for this watch. I do think that the watch looks phenomenal. It is kind of a niche watch by being a 36mm pilot watch. I don't think that you're gonna find many watches in this particular format with the history that Hamilton brings to the table, across with like the overall sort of excellence of Swiss watchmaking that Swatch brings to the table. With that said, for the price of close to $1,000, I think that I would have loved to have seen, as I said, a COSC certified movement, or just something with a little bit more decoration, like an Elabora grade or something like that in there. But other than that, I think that this watch is gonna be pretty great. And if you like Pilot watches and you're looking for something in that more classical, more vintage feeling 36mm case size, I think that this is going to be a great option for you. Okay, so let's get into the likes of this particular watch. Honestly, likes, I have a ton. Like I have big wrists. I have 7.5-inch wrists. My daily watch is a Zenith chronograph that is about 45mm case. So going from 45mm to 36mm for me has been a little bit of a shock. But to be honest, while I don't think I'm going to be abandoning my big watches anytime soon, I do think that I do appreciate this particular execution of a Pilot watch in this particular size. And I particularly love the overall color and feel of the watch, which I think is really great. I think that the quality of leather and the leather strap that you get on this is just bang on, making this just like a super cool, like legit tool watch that will look pretty much great in any occasion, whether it's at Sunday brunch with your friends, or maybe on a hike with also your friends, or maybe a partner, or maybe even just your dogs. Overall, it's just a super fun watch that I think is executed really well, and it just has a really interesting funkiness to it that I don't think is overly loud, and I really love all of that about this particular watch. As far as dislikes, I think there's only two kind of missed opportunities that I would point out on this watch, and one is the size of the strap. I have 7.5-inch wrists, and you know, this is not necessarily Hamilton's fault, but this watch is in that sort of ladies section of the website, so I think that that's maybe why they put that smaller strap on it, because they're expecting people with basically smaller wrists to navigate towards this particular watch. But the reality is that right now small watches are in fashion. Men are wearing women's watches in order to get to those smaller, more classic vintage size cases. So it would be great to see some options, maybe by getting an extra strap that's a little bit longer, or just when you purchase it, having the ability of buying this exact same strap, but maybe in a size that is a little bit larger, so that it will fit those bigger wrists. I think the only other missed opportunity for me on this watch is just the grade of the movement. Even though Hamilton doesn't do COSC or Elabora movements as much as maybe other Swatch brands do, putting a higher grade movement in this particular watch would have definitely elevated the entire feel of the watch. So final thoughts on this watch. I think that this watch really fits a very unique space in the market, you know, and I think it's something that I can only sort of really describe as affordable, quiet luxury. That might sound like a little bit of an oxymoron, because for those folks that follow quiet luxury, like quiet luxury is not really affordable. This idea that people that want ultimate luxury are no longer necessarily interested in things that are loud or have big brands, but are really focusing on spending their money on things that are just of high quality, that feel amazing to wear, and are really focused on the materials and the wearing experience or whatever it is that they're buying. I don't know if Hamilton did this in purpose, but this is kind of where I see this 36mm Aviation Pilot watch. One, because of like the beautiful leather strap that comes with the watch, and two, because of the very classic, very beautiful, funky, but at the same time very restrained white and gold rose sort of look to it, and the fact that the watch at heart is still a utilitarian watch. It is a tool watch. It is a pilot's watch, so it's not really crossing into fashion watch territory. It's still staying very practical and very true to its uses. I find this watch to be very interesting in all of that. You know, I think that, you know, for $1,000 you are getting quiet luxury on a watch, you know? And when you look at this watch, you might not necessarily think of luxury, but that's exactly what quiet luxury is. That's the quiet part of luxury, right? Is the fact that they're things that look simple, look classy, don't necessarily look incredibly expensive, but they are expensive due to the fact that they have very high grade components. They're built to incredibly great standards, and they're meant to provide people a luxurious experience while using them and not necessarily stand as symbols for status, right? Which a lot of watches nowadays are. So anyways, that's what I think about this watch. I think that is really excellent. I really like it. As I said, I would have just liked to see a slightly higher grade movement inside of this watch, and I feel like this would have just completely killed the entire everything that's packaged with this particular offering from Hamilton. But let me know what you guys think. You know, what is your idea of watches and quiet luxury? Do you think that there can be something as affordable quiet luxury? What is your feel about a watch like this? Do you think that I'm kind of on the right ballpark when I say that this kind of feels like quiet luxury? Or do you feel like I'm just completely off base on this one? Let me know what your favorite sort of quiet luxury items are, and even if you just want to tell me what your take overall is on quiet luxury, I would love to hear it. I really do take the time to respond to all of the comments, so believe me, if you share your opinion, I am more than happy to get that conversation started with you, because I'm really excited to know what you guys that watch these videos are thinking. But anyways, folks, thank you very much for watching this video all the way to the end. I really hope to see you guys on the next video. Thank you so much for your support. See you next time.